Chapter 3. The Visitor of Ward 26. Ward 26 was much the same as the hospital foyer, hushed and quiet, its ceiling and floors a cold, apathetic shade of blinding white. The only sounds came from the whispers of passing nuns, the electronic dashes and dots of medical machinery, and an occasional calming announcement from the loudspeaker. "Will the family from Gradifor 5 please report to reception?" The room itself was gigantic, an immense open space with cream-coloured walls curving upwards like some vast cathedral. More drapes hung down on either side, privacy curtains to separate the patient's sickbeds, and shuttles from the city across the water zipped past the ceiling-high windows. The sunlight streaming in from outside only made the bright white surfaces even brighter. "Nice place," the doctor remarked to the feline nurse he'd wrangled into escorting him. "Very professional. There's no shop downstairs though. I'd have a shop. Not a big one, just a shop. So people can shop." The nun at the doctor's side removed the veil draped over her face to reveal sharp features and tawny brown fur, with a spattering of dark spots that a human might have mistaken for freckles. Her yellow-green eyes were wide, unblinking, and the cat's hair around her nose and mouth had gently begun greying with age. "The hospital is a place of healing," she said reproachfully, as if he'd just suggested the Sistine Chapel should have a casino. The doctor shrugged and shoved his hands into his pockets. "A shop does some people the world of good. Not me. Other people. The Sisters of Plenitude take a lifelong vow to help and to mend," replied the cat nun shortly. She didn't seem interested in making conversation. "And humanity does seem to have more than its fair share of woes." The doctor raised dubious eyebrows as he followed her through the ward. A noble sentiment, to be sure, but something about the nurse's words struck him as being a little bit rehearsed, like she'd repeated them a few too many times before. They passed a row of patients languishing on white sheets, each being treated with their own unique cocktail of brightly coloured medicine. The doctor glanced curiously at the IV drips, then began to peer through the privacy veils one by one, looking for anyone who might stick out. Behind one curtain he could see a purplish humanoid who appeared to be, for lack of a better word, sprouting. There was a woman who was covered head to toe in blisters. They moved past her rather quickly, the doctor wincing as he heard a dull moan and a squishy-sounding pop behind him. Then his eyes fell on the enormously fat man from the foyer, whom the sisters were now lowering into bed by means of a large traction system. The man's right arm had become thick and calcified, his skin was greyer than ever, and he was moaning in pain. At the doctor's glance, the tall, litigious-minded woman from earlier, in her sharp black business suit with high heels and a very severe-looking bun, jumped at him. "Excuse me," she bristled. "Perhaps I did not make myself clear. Members of the public may only gaze upon the Duke of Manhattan with written permission from the Senate of New York." The doctor didn't quite know what to say to that, so he searched the gaze of the patient himself, who appeared to be having difficulty breathing. "That's petrifold regression, right?"
"I'm dying, sir,"
rasped the fat man from the bed, almost unable to speak with his stiffening jaw. Up close, he looked lumpy and rock-like, the sickly, mottled pallor of granite.
"A lifetime of charity and abstinence, and it ends like this."
He rolled his eyes with a theatrical sigh of resignation. Soon, thought the doctor, it would hurt to blink. The woman primly adjusted the patient's bed covers before lurching back into the doctor's face again. "Any statements by the Duke of Manhattan may not be made public without official clearance," she said in a single breath, with the kind of icy decorum that was really only rudeness turned inside out. A horrible spasm shook the Duke's tremendous frame.
"Frau Clovis,"
he wheezed.
"I'm so weak."
The neurotic woman returned to his side in an instant, pulling his outstretched hand reverently into hers. "Sister Jat!" she hissed angrily over one shoulder, lips becoming as tight as the bun her hair had been scraped into. "A little privacy, please!" The nurse called Sister Jat drew the curtain shut and gave the doctor a pointed look, indicating it was time to move on. The doctor made a non-committal noise but followed, allowing her to lead him away down the ward. The Duke of Manhattan. This place was strictly for wealthy patients then. So much for a charity hospital. It was the same everywhere. Money always bought you the best views. Of course, that was small consolation if you were dying, as most of these patients were. "He'll be up and about in no time," the cat nun assured him, once they were both safely out of earshot. Again, the doctor raised his eyebrows, this time with saddened surprise that a nurse didn't know better. "Oh, I doubt it. If that's petrifold regression, he's turning to stone. There won't be a cure for..." He scratched at his ear, estimating the timeline from memory. "I don't know, about another 1,000 years? He might be up and about, but only as a statue." But Sister Jat was resolute. "The goddess Santori watches over us all. Have faith in the sisterhood." She gestured widely around the room, her patience beginning to fray. "But is there no one here you recognize? It's rather unusual to visit without knowing the patient." No. The doctor was suddenly lost in a sight awaiting him like a beacon at the far end of the ward. "I think I've found him." And he stepped quietly over to a lofty window that overlooked the city of New York across the bay. Beside it, in the corner, sat a great glass tank, housing an even greater wrinkled face, 5 feet high, alien in countenance, and wreathed in long, fleshy tendrils of the palest blue. The tank's glass was clouded from the smoke being slowly pumped inside, but the doctor knew that face anywhere. The face of Bo. "Novice Haim," spoke the sister as they approached. "If I can leave this gentleman in your care?" Another cat nurse, younger and gentler in manner, nodded slowly. "Oh, I think my friend got lost on her way up," the doctor interjected, with a curious glance back at the lifts. "Rose Tyler. Could you ask at reception?" "Certainly, sir." And Jat stepped away with a curt nod, quite glad to be rid of him. Once they were alone, the younger sister in training dipped her head in a nervous sort of bow and spoke with a high, delicate voice. "I'm afraid the face of Bo is asleep, sir. That's all he tends to do these days." "Oh, just doctor will do, thanks." She bowed again, looked over the smoky glass of her patient's tank in a tender sort of way, then shifted kind, bright eyes to meet the doctor's. "Are you a friend, or...?" The doctor shook his head, regretting that he hadn't paid that much attention to the face at the time. "We met just the once on platform 1. What's wrong with him?" The cat nurse looked surprised at the question, but her eyes filled with a sincere sympathy. I'm so sorry. I thought you knew. The face of Bo is dying." The doctor felt his heart tighten. Death. Always death. "Of what?" he asked at length. "Old age," said the novice sadly. "The one thing we can't cure." It was a tone the doctor knew all too well, the haunting pain of losing a patient. He followed her sorrowful gaze to the sleeping giant beside them. The creature's craggy skin had a sickly, golden-green hue to it, not unlike a toad's. The eyes were closed, the wide, elongated lips moving feebly with every slow breath. He looked pained and gravely ill. The doctor had heard many a whispered rumor about the face of Bo in his wanders across the universe, but none that included a hospital. "He's thousands of years old," Novice Haim told him. "Some people even say millions, although I know that's impossible." The doctor smiled wistfully at her words, his eyes gaining a strangely hollow look. "Oh, I don't know. I like impossible." He shrugged off his coat and knelt by the face of Beau's tank, resting a gentle hand against the glass. It was cool beneath his skin, but felt almost alive. He could see his own face reflected back at him in the enclosure, sharp, aquiline features, made soft by the sudden emotion in his eyes. His new face. Such a young face. "I'm here," he said gently. "I look a bit different, but it's me. It's the doctor." The face of Beau shifted slightly at his murmuring, and even heaved a ragged breath or two in unconscious response. Or recognition? But he didn't wake from his sleep.